Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Inside Scoop Virginia, I'm Bettina Lawton, and I'm your host, and we are talking about heroin. And now we're going to talk to three folks who are involved in this in sort of an education preventative way. Immediately next to me is Kathy Briggs. She has her master's in social work, and she is a social worker in Northern Virginia, and she is the mother of a child who died from heroin, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Jennifer Lewis Cooper is the Protect Coordinator for the Unified Prevention Coalition. Jennifer has been involved in the prevention field for more than a decade. She's one of the founders of the coalition and is currently its finance director. She is also the volunteer coordinator for the Protect work group, and she's going to tell us what that is. And then we are also joined by George Young. He is the vice president of the coalition, and he is also a senior clinician for the National Counseling Group and state director for the outpatient services. He is a licensed clinical social worker and a trained juvenile forensic evaluator. He received his bachelor's of social work degree from James Madison University in 1978 and his master's of social work from VCU in 1989. So let's start off with the broadest question, which is, what is the coalition?
Well, the Unified Prevention Coalition of Fairfax County is a nonprofit that got organized as a result of the school system, which used to have coalitions in all the major high schools in the county. The funding went away, so about 5 of us joined forces and became the Unified Prevention Coalition. We organized ourselves as a nonprofit, and our main goal is to keep our youth and young adults in our county safe and drug-free.
Okay, and so how long has heroin been a part of that? I mean, we just talked with Captain Cleveland, who said it didn't used to be as big as it is now. Have you been focused on heroin for a while?
Yes, for about the last 5 to 6 years. It has been in our focus quite a bit. We got really involved after the heroin ring. The sting came down in 2008. We lost a young adult in our community. The Lannis family lost their daughter. And that next year, the community and the people out in the western part of the county really wanted to rally and do something to bring awareness to this problem. They were normal families, normal moms and dads, normal children that got involved in this terrible ring. So we kind of band together as a grassroots organization, we formed ourselves as Protect, and it stands for Parents Reaching Out to Educate Communities Together. And that's what we did. We went to the major high schools, we put a panel together, we talked with the young adult that was the addict in recovery, the families of young adults or children in recovery, and those families that had lost a child. We had law enforcement on the panel, we had treatment prevention coordinators on the panel, and we brought our forum to many of the communities. I've calculated we've done about 25 programs over the past 5 years, and we're continuing this year. We have 2 programs scheduled so far before the end of the year. One's on November 10th at South County High School at 7 p.m., and the second one is November 18th at Fairfax High School. And the panel consists of a young adult in recovery, a parent or a family member that was in their child or their sibling was involved in addiction to heroin or another drug, law enforcement, the judicial system, as well as the treatment aspect of it.
Well, how do kids in high school or younger kids get heroin? It just strikes me as such a big drug. It's not like marijuana, which of course I'm dating myself when I say that, but it's not like marijuana where you could grow it in your garage or something. I mean, how are the kids getting it? Are they getting it, these dealers going to the schools? Where are they getting it from?
I don't know what you can add.
Cell phones, just this use of cell phones by texting, by phoning each other. They're constantly making connections. They do it in parking lots, at grocery stores, and shopping centers. They do it in parks, wherever, but word gets out there with the cell phone. We just don't have a lot of control over the use of the cell phone, and there's a lot of communication that goes on.
It's just
because
much more
of that.
accessible, and is what Captain Cleveland was talking about earlier in terms of the increase on the streets, and that trickles down certainly to the youth, and it's talked about. It's much more just media hyped, and so everything is sensationalized right now, and so I think the students certainly pay attention to that, and it is available, and it doesn't take much to figure out where to get it.
Well, is this now? Captain Cleveland talked about sort of this progression from the prescription painkillers and moving in from heroin to heroin from that basis. Is that what kids are doing? Are they taking a different route altogether? Is this just sort of the exciting big rush? Try it, or are they starting with the prescription painkillers?
Students are definitely using the prescription painkillers. There's been a huge increase in the last several years of increased availability of the medications and then them using them to get high. And that certainly has been a component of the increase with the heroin, because as any of those students get into a strong pill opiate effect, then there's a very natural bridge to then move over to heroin, or if they become chemically dependent, then they're going to move into seeking it on a more easier level basis, which is on the street.
Okay.
Kelly, did you find any personal experience?
Well, I was going to say my son started out with marijuana, and I'm hearing from one of the detectives that they're now going from marijuana right into heroin because the opiates aren't so easy to get. But my son was involved with opiates, and then he was on to Suboxone to try to deal with that, going through the withdrawal period and maintaining. It's like a methadone, but he was also must have been accessing heroin. Little did we know. But they're also using Xanax a lot out there. Yeah.
Xanax?
Yeah, Xanax. His roommate had an overdose of Xanax and had seizures.
Oh my heavens! I didn't know they were abusing that.
Yeah.
What we're finding
Anything.
too with the through the Unified Prevention Coalition's efforts is underage drinking. It kind of starts there. The inhibitions get let down. Kids feel more at ease to experiment. The few young adults we've had on our panels started there as young teens, and it graduated into the easy accessibility of marijuana. And then through friends, older friends and groups, it just progresses. So it doesn't necessarily, right.
Yeah, medicine cabinets, yeah.
Now, how do you know? I mean, how did you become aware that your son was using heroin? Are there symptoms? I mean, what should parents be looking for?
Actually, we did not know that my son was using heroin, and we're still waiting for the final medical examiner's report, but we have a strong suspicion that he was, and that's how he did die. But after he did die, I heard from a friend of mine whose son was using heroin, who said, "Gosh, Mom, when you described him falling asleep at the dinner table, his eyes closing, he'd be having a fork coming up to his mouth and he'd be falling asleep, and I'm petrified of him driving. When they're in bed in the morning and they won't get up, as the detective said, when they're nodding off at a party, falling asleep, they start to snore. Their respiratory system is shutting down, and that's when you've got to get Narcan on board, get them help. But unfortunately, these kids don't know the signs, and it's this code of silence. They have to be quiet. They can't tell anybody about it because they'll get into trouble themselves.
The other, a couple of other early symptoms or indicators that family members see are constipation, GI issues, cramping, a lot of stomach problems, complaints of pain. So those are very typical and go very much along with opiates and heroin use, because those are some of the withdrawal effects that then, as the addict becomes chemically dependent, they're really working to avoid. But we see that it's subtle, and there's just general increase in those complaints. That would be an indication that something's not right, and maybe connecting it with other visible details, such as pieces of balloon or baggies or aluminum foil or lighters or candles, things, maybe even some powder substance on a counter that's not normally there that you wouldn't see. Why would that be on the bathroom counter or the kitchen counter even, or the table? It's like, well, this shouldn't be here. And beginning to put some of those things together, because by themselves it's not anything, but together it becomes a huge problem.
Right. Well, when you were saying about them being tired and falling asleep, I was like, well, that's the whole thing you hear about. Oh, we need to change school start times.
Right.
And aren't they all that
Yeah.
way? And aren't they all withdrawn? And it's really tough. Can anybody get a presentation? You've mentioned
Yes.
2 school presentations coming up.
Yes, we have talked at many of the major high schools over the course of the past 5 years. We've talked at one of the private schools in town. We've talked to all the police community groups at all the police stations. Anyone can go to our website and contact us, unifiedpreventioncoalition.org, and put on a presentation. We're happy to go and get the word out, educate, and make people aware that this just isn't, like the captain said, the people you think of like drug addicts and others like that. This is real people, the Briggs family, the Lannis family. These are real people like you and me that you would never suspect something like this to happen to.
So if somebody, for example, when you say go to school, would you go beyond that in terms of like churches could
We
get
can
you
do
and
that.
other folks can get you as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you have to go to the website for that. And you've got the presentation that you do. Are there individual things? Can you refer people to help, or do you just do the presentations?
Well, we do have a number of parents associated with our Protect group that have been down that road with their child, and they're more than happy to be advocates and help other families, someone to talk to. As part of our panel, we do have the treatment aspect of it, and we work through the CSB here in Fairfax County. So there's a resource there for parents to learn about and a place to call to get more information. We can provide some information. We're not counselors. We're hardworking grassroots prevention folks that really want to help communities and our families in those communities. It's very important to us to not let this happen to other wonderful children, good kids that have a great future ahead of them.
And part of it for us is really to make sure that we're raising the awareness, right? Putting it on the surface for people to understand that that this really is happening, and that it can happen to any one of us, and not to mention any one of our children.
Right.
So that's the really important piece.
Well, and I think that's really the new piece for a lot of people, because they did think, as Captain Cleveland said, that these were hardcore, live on the street people.
My
and it's
neighbors and
not.
friends were shocked. They were shocked.
Well, and hopefully we can do something to avoid that. I want to thank you all for coming and being on the show. We'll be back.